Good evening, everyone. I'm Randy Speck. I'm the chair of ANC 34G. I represent the single member district. It's ANC 34G03, and that's the area basically between Nebraska and Utah and Broad Branch. We're glad to have everyone tonight. We'll begin by, as we always do, by introducing commissioners. And Chaz, you want to go first?
Sure, I'm Chaz Cadwell. I'm representing single member district 3G07, which is bounded by Reno Road, Nebraska, Military, and a little bit of Nevada, the southeast corner of our district.
Okay, Connie.
Good evening. I'm Connie Chang. I am the representative for single member district number 5, which begins right where Chevy, the Chase Bank is on Legation, and it goes up east side of Connecticut Avenue, hooks around Western, down Broad Branch Road, and has a little bit of an island between Nevada Avenue and Chevy Chase Parkway down to Jocelyn. Nice to be here.
Peter.
I'm Peter Gosselin. I'm the commissioner for District 6, which is the west side of Connecticut, back to 41st from the Western Avenue border of Maryland and the Chevy Chase Circle to Military Road, with a peninsula between Kanawha and Legation on the east.
And Lisa.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lisa Gore, and I'm the commissioner for ANC 34G01. And my district borders Oregon Avenue, Western Avenue, a little bit past Pinehurst Circle, and back around towards the tributary. Welcome.
And John.
I'm John Higgins. I'm in single member district 02. My district extends from Military Road up past Aberfoyle, north to south, and Oregon to Utah, east to west.
Michael.
I am Michael Zeldin. I am 3G04, which goes from Lafayette over to Western and bounded by Broad Branch and Utah.
All right, we have all 7 commissioners here tonight, so we have a quorum and can conduct business. This is our 5th meeting this month, believe it or not, and it's been a busy month. I'll begin with just some general introductory remarks about our procedures. We're again virtual, of course, and we are using the Zoom webinar, and that means that all of the commissioners have audio and video. But as we go through the meeting and we identify other topics that come up and attendees want to and need to speak, we will elevate them and make them panelists, and they will have audio and video as well. And if any of you want to use the screen share function, we can certainly make you a co-host so that you can do that. We are recording the meeting tonight so that it will be available on our YouTube channel tomorrow. If during the meeting you want to make any comments about anything that's going on, you can certainly put that in the chat. And we ask you then to put all of your questions in the Q&A so that we can see readily where the questions are and distinguish those from the comments. And with that, I think we can begin with our agenda. And first is adopting the agenda. It was posted on our website and on the various social media in the neighborhood, including Nextdoor and the listservs. Are there any modifications or changes we need to make to the agenda?
I think that last part at 9 o'clock, we'll move that to March 14th, Randy.
Okay, that's the testimony at
Yes.
the hearing on the 2 bills. Okay, we'll defer that until our March 14th meeting.
And also the listener home, right?
Well,
That's already been done.
Oh, it has.
That would already-
Then I have
Yeah,
an old agenda, sorry.
Right.
Yeah, that was on our website and we posted it out again already.
We'll catch you up, Peter.
I do past really well. Past meetings are my expertise.
Well,
I know.
we have to have some kudos for Peter this month, because with 5 meetings, the secretary's job is substantial, and we all feel for you, Peter. We appreciate the work you're doing on that, on getting the minutes out.
A lot of work.
Okay, with that, I have moved that we adopt the agenda as the updated agenda that was posted. All those in favor? 7-0. All right. I only have two announcements tonight. The first is just a report on actions by the Public Space Committee this week at their February 24th meeting. There were two items from our ANC that were considered by the Public Space Committee on Thursday, and they agreed in each instance with our recommendations. And the first was the paper alley behind 6455 Barnaby Street. And we had voted 7-0 to oppose that application.
Oh, did he freeze?
I think Randy has frozen.
Then
Uh-oh.
He's coming up.
It's time.
Nebraska, conditional on the approval.
Randy,
Yes.
you
froze.
froze for quite a bit.
You gotta go
Oh,
back.
really?
Yeah.
It's
That's
weird.
very peculiar. Never does that. Okay, where did I leave off?
I don't
The
know when you
paper
talked
alley?
about the paper alley from the
Okay,
paper
start.
I
alley.
just started. Okay. The paper alley behind 6455 Barnaby Street. And that was denied by the Public Space Committee by unanimous vote. Then similarly, but in the other direction, the Public Space Committee approved the curb cut on Nebraska for the proposed Maret School athletic field, conditional on the approval of the special exception that's pending before the BZA, which is exactly what we had recommended that they do. So both of those were, they followed the ANC's recommendations. The other announcement I have is with regard to the what is still called the Citizens Advisory Council, but I think it should be the Community Council. I hope they change their name. But that is for the 2nd District Metropolitan Police. And they meet tomorrow night with 2nd District Commander Bedleon, and there's a Zoom meeting at 7 o'clock. And this will be an opportunity to ask questions and share your concerns and feedback with the MPD. All right, any other commissioner announcements? Peter.
I want to use the announcements to update the commissioners on two issues that I brought before you before. The first involves American City Diner. You'll remember our last meeting, our last regular meeting, we voted to send a letter to DCRA asking that it be inspected to see if it's a blighted property and asking DCRA to examine the use of the billboard above it, whether it's improper or not. I frankly don't know yet what DCRA has done, but our action has had two effects. One, the advertisement for renting the billboard, for leasing the billboard, has been taken down. In addition, today I talked to a member of the family that owns the American City Diner, and we had a full and frank discussion, and he told me a number of problems that they're facing in trying to lease it. One of which is not, as I had understood it for a long time, that there are tanks, that used to be a site for a gas station, and that there are defunct tanks underground. He insists no. I suggested that he come before the commission, or if I do a single member district meeting on the subject, and talk about the property and what their intention is. I also suggested that they take some very simple steps to clean it up, fix the windows, board up things that are, loose, get some rat control underneath it. And I think that we're going to see some progress on that. The other issue is Mama Lucia's. There are essentially twin issues there that are not connected in any legal sense. There is a BZA hearing on Wednesday for what has been pictured to all of us as a routine or ministerial special exception for them to operate, continue to operate, for them to operate as a fast food establishment. Now, at the time that came up, Mama Lucia's erected a canopy out into the sidewalk. And the question arose at this commission, did they have a public space permit to do that? I've gone back and forth with Andrew Scholoff, the lawyer, and with Pete, the owner of the Parthenon and Mama Lucia's. The canopy company has not gotten a permit and has not applied for a permit yet. I thought Pete was going to be on the call, but in any case, I'll just convey what he has said he's willing to do, which is get the canopy company to take down the canopy, apply for the permit, and then put it back up. I said I was in no position to say yes or say no. I said I would convey to the commission the offer. I think he and his lawyer are going back and forth about that, but in any case, they promised me that they will apply for and get a permit or take down the canopy. Now, if the commission decides that they think that we think the best course of affairs is to take down the canopy and then go through the process and put it back up, we can do that. But I thought I'd convey to you what Pete has offered to do in this case. So those are my two announcements. I don't know if we want to pursue any action.
Well, just as an aside, perhaps, but the Public Space Committee does not look favorably on people who do something without a permit and then come in and ask for a permit. And they might do better before the Public Space Committee if they take it down first. That's just a practical matter. And we do need to make sure that when people are using public space, they actually do go and get a permit for that.
Well, I'll convey that to Andrew Scholoff, who is their lawyer. I actually think that's the direction he has been advising people to go. But yeah. I didn't think it was my place to sort of give advice on this. I thought I'd just report what has happened, but I'd be happy to take back to him your experience with this. And so anyways, those are my two.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Connie?
Peter, thank you so much for talking to the family that owns the American City Diner. I think rather than have a single member district meeting, I think you should bring it to the commission because there's many people across our neighborhood who are concerned. And the more that people understand what the issues are, the better, I think. If we can get that done sooner than later, meaning bring them in sooner than later, it's better because we're going to get to the beginning of spring. So it would be nice to get some action there. And I completely agree with you. I support you that if they continue to leave it like that without fixing some things up, it's going to be even harder really for anyone to be interested. And it's becoming a true eyesore right at the corner of our main street.
Lisa?
Yes, just want to let the community know I got an email from Cynthia Tercios. She's a senior community engagement specialist with DDOT with an update on the Oregon Avenue reconstruction project. And I know we heard about that not too long ago, but she reported that the project is in phase 3, well underway. For the next 2 weeks, the stream bypass pumping operation will resume. And folks over there off of Oregon can expect increased truck traffic and construction personnel at Pinehurst Branch Bridge. She also mentioned that the construction zone on Oregon Avenue between Beach Street and the private driveway north of Oregon Knolls will remain closed to vehicular traffic. And if anybody wants information, I'll put the website address in the chat. but it's OregonAvenueProject.com. That's where you can go and pretty much find anything updated on that project. Thanks.
Okay, is that all the announcements? Connie, you still have your hand up, I see.
I think
Oh.
Chaz is before me, but I do have
Okay,
an announcement.
go ahead.
Go
Go ahead,
Connie.
Chance.
Oh, I'm going to go first. Okay. Well, I was just going to say that Peter and I have been on an email chain about Military Road, the road itself between Nevada Avenue and Chevy Chase Parkway. There's like a very rectangular part of the road that was not filled in after some, I think, utility work was done last week. And so DDOT has been alerted, and hopefully that will be fixed, because that is really the main kind of commute for people. And I just wanted people to know that is being looked at and hopefully taken care of. And I also want to give a shout out to DDOT for fixing the sidewalks. I mean, it looks really beautiful on, I think it's Morrison Street that they did it between Chevy Chase Parkway and Connecticut Avenue on the north side of the street. It looks really good. I hope that they'll come back and do some plantings by the sort of curb, but it was really well done. Just wanted to say that, give them a shout out.
Okay, Chaz.
Sure, two things. Tomorrow evening, Commissioner Chang and I are part of a community advisory committee on the implementation of the reversible lane and bike lane legislation along Connecticut Avenue. And I think this is an organizational meeting, but we'll be able to report more as this group meets over the spring. And then secondly, Wednesday night, we're hosting our 8th information exchange on the small area plans and historic districts at 7 o'clock, and the materials on our website and elsewhere.
Okay, thank you, Chaz. Michael?
Yes, hi. There's been a lot of activity in our neighborhood with respect to traffic calming measures. New signage has gone up, 20-mile-an-hour signs, children at play signs. Some speed humps have gone in, some are on hold. We're trying to engage DDOT to make sure that we understand the new procedures that have gone into effect quite recently. I have to report that we are in that discussion, but if people want to see what DDOT has initiated as its new proposal, I would invite anyone to go to our February 22nd meeting, and you'll see a presentation, oral and PowerPoint, by Christian Pinheiro, who is the representative from DDOT that we have been coordinating with. So as we get more information from DDOT about specifically the way in which community can respond to a proposed traffic calming measure, we'll report back. I'm hoping to have Christian Pinheiro or somebody from DDOT appear at either our first or second of the month March meetings to bring some clarity to it. But we're pursuing it, and we'll let the community know about the community engagement part of it as soon as we get more clarification from DDOT. But that the presentation that Christian put on our webpage, which is on our webpage on our February 14th meetings, is a pretty comprehensive outline of what their program entails.
Okay, thank you. Any other announcements? Community announcements. I see Amir's here. Amir, if you raise your hand, if you want to make some announcements. Anyone else who wants to make an announcement too? Okay, I'll promote.
I got him, Randy.
Okay, you got it.
I also do want to say that Military Road hole that I mentioned, thankfully Amir has been helping us. So I'm glad he might mention it again himself.
There's also, has anybody noticed a huge hole going down Western right before you turn on, oh my goodness. Amir,
Is it Primrose?
oh, like if you're, I can't think of the name of the street.
I saw a bunch of potholes on Western, but I don't know about one big hole.
Oh, it's awful.
Okay,
It's awful.
I'll check it out
take
tomorrow.
Well, I'll take a picture of it because it's past the circle. And if you like take the left going down, I can't think of the name of that street, you actually have to veer into the right lane to keep from hitting it. It's very
Okay.
bad.
Lisa, this is between Pinehurst Circle and Oregon on that side?
No, it's past, actually past Chevy Chase Circle.
Oh, it's between the Circle and Wisconsin.
No,
it's
I think
before Wisconsin. It's that first left. Once you, second left, once you pass the church on the left, that next left-hand turn. So if you're like gonna pick up Reno Road and go down that way.
So that's my district?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll get on that.
Western after Reno, you said?
Yeah, I'll
It's
take
41st,
it.
it's 41st Street. It's 41st.
41st and Western.
I'll go out
Okay,
there
great.
tomorrow and look at it tomorrow.
Peter, you
Me
might have
too.
to go. You got to go to
It's
the North
bad.
American City Diner now.
But one thing on Western Avenue, on the Chevy Chase listserv, someone had made comment about how Western Avenue was pretty choppy, really from like Tennyson down beyond Broad Branch. And so I put in, Christian put in
Okay.
into 311 a request to look at the whole stretch of Western Avenue, essentially from the Circle all the way up to Tennyson, which is where the last pothole, which they just filled in the other day.
Okay.
Okay, Emir?
Well, I don't have much to add today. Sorry. So it's gonna be quick. But so I wanted to add, actually, we're talking about going out and about. So just want everyone to know that I am available Tuesdays and Fridays to meet anyone in the community. I want to show my face here so you guys know that. For any of your local concerns, so including the roadway issue. So tomorrow's Tuesday. I'm going to go on my sweeps and check out Western, that big hole, and also the little potholes, I think in Commissioner Zeldin's district.
And Amir,
and
can I
the
add?
military road.
Yes,
Oh.
and can you add Nevada Avenue where I am between Livingston and Legation? I don't know what is happening with that road, but there's gravel everywhere and there's potholes just on that
Okay,
stretch.
on your specific block of Nevada?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah,
right,
I'll check
right
that
where I
out too
park.
while I'm up there.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to say. So Tuesdays and Fridays, anyone in the community, if you want me to come out and meet you in your area, I'm available those days. And of course, as you all know, tomorrow the mask mandate in DC is being lifted, and the vaccine mandate was lifted a couple weeks ago. And the other thing is we are in the midst of budget season still. The budget is currently being crafted. We held the budget town hall a couple weeks ago where people put in their opinions and concerns about the budget. So we hope to get that final budget presented to the council soon and see what's in it. And there isn't much to add. There wasn't a whole lot of initiatives announced. And I know you guys have bi-monthly meetings, so sometimes the second meeting doesn't have as much going on, but just wanted to put my face here today. And I can also take any questions if anyone has questions for something that the mayor's office can handle. So you mentioned Military Road, and yes, as Commissioner Chang said, DDOT is aware. And they are aware that it's probably a utility issue that was working on it before, but the lack of an actual roadway is something that DDOT would have to take care of. So it's on their radar now. And as you said, we hope to have that resolved soon because it is a main thoroughfare.
Amira, why don't
Yes.
you let me know when you're going out, or I'll let you know when I'm going out, and maybe we can. look
Sure
at
thing.
that.
It's probably going to be, I'd say maybe 11 or 12.
Just
if not, then-
just email me and I'll.
Sure thing.
Yeah, or let me know too, Amir. So I
Great.
could tell you, yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Anything else?
Thank you, Emir.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Looks like we have a new person from Ward 4, Councilmember Janice Lewis George's office. How do you pronounce your name?
That is correct. I am the new person. My name is Aura. Full name is
Aura.
Aura Heredia. Full name for those who are keeping up at home is Aura Angelica Libertad Cruz Heredia. My parents thought it would be really to everyone involved, but you all only get 3. So I am a new constituent services coordinator in the office of Councilmember Lewis George. Unfortunately, Matt Landrew has moved on to other things, and so he's no longer in our office. He will be very missed, and I know that he'll miss being in community, but I'm excited to be a new person sharing space with y'all. So I'll just share a quick few updates from the council's office and then have any questions afterwards. I'll also be sharing my contact in the chat, but just to kind of get us started, I'll start with updates from the DC Council directly. So oversight hearings are almost done. They'll be ending this week. On Wednesday and Thursday, we will have DGS, DCPS, and all other education agencies. So if you have anything that you would like to flag for those agencies, please do sign up to testify. You can get information for how to do so at our website, as well as the DC Council website. I'll share also that we have a hearing scheduled for March 14th for the Safe Routes to School Act and the Walk Without Worry Acts. The Safe Routes to School Act was introduced by Councilmember Louis George, and the Walk Without Worry Act by our neighbor Councilmember Brianna Doe in Ward 1. And so both of these will kind of bring in a bunch of really important traffic safety measures, especially near our schools where we have a lot of pedestrian safety concerns. So you can find information about that at the link I just shared. I will also share with you all that the council member is introducing emergency legislation to allow DCPS teachers and staff to serve as DC State Board of Education members. Right now, DC Charter School teachers and staff and DC private school teachers and staff are able to serve as SBOE members, but DCPS is not. So the council member will be introducing that, I believe, tomorrow, and hopefully will be passed. And another thing that's being introduced this week is a measure to have DDOT's Urban Forestry Division have stop work order power. So kind of when I joined the office, there was a heritage tree being cut down over for our Tacoma neighbors without any permitting. And so what we've seen is that oftentimes, time and again, developers will not get those permits, they'll do what they want to do, and then they'll just pay the fines. We found out during that incident that the Urban Forestry Division could show up and say, don't do that, but they could actually not say, don't do that, and actually stop that. So that will be introduced this week as well. So look for that. In terms of redistricting, I know that folks are hopping on today, so I won't speak on their behalf, but I did really enjoy seeing the maps that were released on Sunday. So I'm sure that they'll share more information for that and how you can give public comment on that. Let's see, I'll also share an exciting initiative that I'm bottom lining. So if you have questions, you can come to me because all the details are in my head, which is Ward 4 Tier Days. So we just wrapped up our Listening as We Climb virtual listening sessions with the community. Thanks for everyone who showed up to those, but we will have the in-person direct outreach component just starting up next week on March 10th. We'll start with Shepherd Park. You can find information for when all of the relevant neighborhoods are happening, as well as sign up to volunteer to door knock with me at the link that I just dropped, janiceward4.com/care. If anyone has questions about that, again, reach out to me, but I am personally really excited to be out in the community, doing this in the safest way possible and making sure that the resources are in the hands of those who need it. I'll add as well, the Small Business Summit for Ward 4 will be held on March 16th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. This is an initiative to get just kind of information from maybe non-traditional sources, as well as from district agencies on small businesses and what resources there are to do that in the ward. So that's happening March 16th. And I think that's it for me. I'll always plug with the sign up link for our newsletter. It comes out every Friday and it contains a lot of information that may be relevant to all Ward 4 residents and neighbors. And I personally have my tradition of a cup of tea or coffee on Saturday mornings when I read through it. So hopefully everyone signs up for that and gets connected to the ward and to our office. And with that, I'll take any questions. I saw Commissioner Zeldin's hand.
Michael, I think he had his hand up first. Yes, Michael.
Hi, Aura. So are you going to be a permanent? When I spoke to your office today, they said that a fellow was coming on in 2 weeks and that he was going to be the person. Has that been changed? Or are you just 2 weeks and then he takes over? Or are you going to be with?
Fair. So for everyone else's context, I was hired kind of as Matt left the office, but we are hiring as well a third constituent services coordinator. So hopefully we'll have more capacity on the team. And that's just something that we're looking forward to in 2022. I don't think we necessarily decided, Commissioner Zeldin, on who's taking what meetings. We have a lot of community meetings, ANC meetings, and then just small interest group meetings, as you might imagine, that we distribute amongst us. But we're definitely waiting for for him to be onboarded to kind of discuss who wants to be where. It is very possible though that he's taking 3-4G since I normally take 4B and 4C. So that there's not that many to go around. So but we'll know more. I'm definitely going to be here until we decide that. So, and you might see me even on off weeks. So.
Okay, well, we're happy to see you and we're happy to have you join us. Just your office said you were not going to be the one. That's why.
Thank you. I may not be, but I will still always be, you know, completely an eligible candidate for any concerns that you have. Just because we rep, you know, different communities meetings doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, we're the only ones servicing the area. So feel free to reach out to me if you'd like to talk to me.
So there'll always be a place in your heart for us, right?
Listen, I'm here, aren't I?
Right.
Okay, Lisa, I think had her hand up first, then Peter.
Yeah. Alda, can you tell me on your Ward 4 care days, whose door are you guys going to be knocking? And the reason why I bring that up, because we definitely have seniors in the community that if someone is knocking doors, you know, as a commissioner, I got a couple that I could send you to knock on just to check, make sure they're okay and have the things that they need. So can you explain a little bit? So I have two questions. That's the first one. Can you explain a little bit what you guys exactly are going to be doing? And then second question is fairly easy. Where's the Small Business Summit going to be located?
I'll start with the second one. It'll be at Emory Beacon Center. And I do believe I shared the link for that, but if I didn't, I'll find it. Oh, no, I did. Yep, Emory Beacon Center. So at 6100 Georgia Avenue Northwest for the address. For care days, I appreciate that question. Yes. So none of the commissioners here are in Shepherd Park neighborhood, which is the first one that we are starting with. But commissioners will soon learn that about 2 to 3 to 4 weeks in advance of our care day, I will be sending out an email, that the council member will be sending out an email requesting a conversation with you all about, hey, who are the folks in your SMDs who would like to hear from us directly, right? The ambitious goal is we're knocking on everyone's door. We're visiting our unhoused neighbors. We're going to be out there. The realistic goal is I'd love to set up a conversation with commissioners to make sure that we have a go-to list, right? We have a list of known constituents, known concerns, and the like. Part of this is to kind of bridge the digital divide that does exist in the ward and the district. And so there's definitely an emphasis and a priority in the council members' mind to let's go to the doors that don't have as many opportunities to connect with us, right? This administration started in the pandemic, which means we haven't, you know, at the very peak of the pandemic in many ways. And so we haven't had that opportunity to connect with folks not on Zoom or not on, you know, not on a newsletter, et cetera, et cetera. So other than when the council member does, you know, get to go out in the community. So we're trying to do our best to bridge some of that. So that's definitely the intention. So I do hope that I'll have y'all as partnership on that as I, you know, work out the schedule. These Ward 4 care days will last between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. We hope y'all will come out and knock on some doors with us or walk with a council member from one place to another with us for a little bit. Again, I'll be reaching out about all of that as we get closer to your neighborhoods, since I do have to control my brain space a little bit too and section off between neighborhoods as we come up on them. But all of that hopefully will be happening, and then we wouldn't do this if we didn't have, you know, the partnership of commissioners. I personally am a huge fan of hyper-local government, so I always rave about that. I'm like, I met this commissioner, I know this commissioner, and I talked to this commissioner, and so I'm definitely looking forward to that experience. Any other questions on that?
Well, yeah, related to that, are you cross-referencing the list of people who have put in for exemptions to take out their trash cans or shovel their snow? Because that usually is a good list of people, a good starting point of people who may need to be touched more frequently.
Yeah, so definitely have some resources as to, well, for example, our constituent services database, right, of the concerns that have come to our office. But part of this is also to build that list out and get that information in. So we know that we don't have all of the seniors who could use their sidewalks shoveled, but we know that we have enough people who would be willing to shovel their sidewalks. So let's start building out that list so that when the next snowstorm hits and DPW is running a little bit behind, we can show up for them proactively, right? And we can have volunteers ready for that. So there's a little bit of right now we don't have all of these databases built. We don't necessarily have a lot of resources from the previous administration that were kind of passed on to us. So we do have to start some places from a little bit of from scratch, to be honest, and transparent about that. So that's part of what we're doing. We want to identify the homes with seniors. We want to identify the homes with folks with disabilities. We want to identify the homes with folks who may need, specific resources and specific support systems that they may not have on hand already.
All I was suggesting, Howard, is that there is a list of people who have already applied, which would be a good data point for you guys to get started with. That's all.
No, yes, I got that. Sorry. Yes, I have that. I don't have access to all of those lists, I guess, is part of what I was trying to add that I can see from the back end. So that's part of that issue there.
Okay, Peter?
It's fallen to me to be the secretary of this commission, and it would be an immense help to me if you would type up the announcement portion of what you said and send it to me.
I got you.
And whether you do it in the future or somebody else does it, you could convey that to them if somebody else does it. Okay. Thanks.
No worries. I got you. Thank you.
Thanks.
And I'm happy to send that to all commissioners as needed as well.
Thank you, Aura. That's very helpful. Okay, anything else from commissioners?
No.
All right, we'll move to the substantive part of our agenda. And the first item on the agenda is a public space permit application. And Michael, this is in your single member district, and I've just elevated Greg Blanton and Denise. Michael, you're muted.
I was saying that besides Greg and Denise, I think their architect, is your architect around, guys?
Hi, yes, I was on mute. Yes, hi, everyone. Yeah, he's on the line.
Okay.
His name is John.
Okay,
Hunt.
I'm elevating him right now.
Okay.
So
Okay.
while we're waiting for, there's John. So I've sent around a one-page description of the issue here to all of the commissioners a few days ago, so we could be up to speed. But to summarize it, Denise and Greg, who live at 5632nd, have a existing small sunroom. It's considered a bay window by DC law because it doesn't have a foundation. It just hangs off the edge of the permanent retaining wall part of the building. And they want to expand it. It would be an expansion that would go into the public space by about 3 feet facing McKinley. The reason they want to expand it is because Denise's dad needs to move down from New York to be with them. He, after the passing of his wife, and is getting on in age, needs them to help be caregivers for them. And in order for him to live with them, they've got to expand this room about 3 feet, so a bed and a walker can fit in there. Now, Randy and I have been there and investigated it, and I've walked the neighborhood a number of times, and I have to say that there are many, many bay window extensions of the type that Denise and Greg are asking for. And to my view, from the naked eye, you could not tell 3 feet from a lack of 3 feet. So it wouldn't be a structure that would be visually different than the structures that are all around the neighborhood. These guys have gone around their neighborhood and asked people whether or not they would oppose or support. And as they'll speak for themselves shortly, their surrounding neighbors all support this. And indeed, the next door neighbor and across the caddy corner have the exact same addition on their houses. And so while it's up to the Public Space Committee my view is, and Randy's view is that we should approve this request and give to them, therefore, the benefit of the great weight that our deliberations require. So that's the introduction, and Denise and Greg and John, the stage is all yours. And I know, Lisa, if you're the webmaster on this thing, they have some slides they want to show, so they need to share screen.
Randy, you need to make them.
Yeah, I can do that. Denise and Greg, you want to share screen? Is that it? Or John?
Yeah, no, we can. It's just a few slides just to orient the committee. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Do I, okay,
You should be able to do that now.
all right. Is it something that I just, okay.
Oh, you see,
Okay,
share.
okay, I just have to find it. Can you see our house?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Okay, this is a couple of slides. So good evening, committee. Thank you, Mr. Zeldin, for the summary. I'm here with Greg. And as you heard, John Hensley has also joined the call. And we don't have much to add to Mr. Zeldin's summary. We were, he sent us the email that he sent the whole committee, but we thought it would be helpful to just show a couple of photos of the house and the proposed plans. This is where we live. We're at the corner of McKinley and 32nd Street. And you can see this, it's really a screened porch, right? By DC, it's called a bay projection, but here you see our screened porch. And we're proposing to use this space for the additional room on the first floor of our house for my father. And then we're also proposing to build above this space to create a room on the second floor for my family. So the building restriction line that Mr. Zeldin had referenced goes through this screen porch. Actually, the majority of the screen porch is over the actual building restriction line because you are allowed the 4-foot extension beyond the building restriction line for bay projections. So currently the edge of the screen porch is where that 4-foot allowance ends. Just trying to go to the next slide here. Okay, here's another view of the house from the back. And you can see, I don't know if you can see because the panel is over here, but let me see if I can move this over or shrink this down. I don't know if you can sort of see this, the edge of this stone wall here. And we're proposing to build out an additional 3 feet. And so that 3 feet goes to just within this this stone wall from the back. Okay, and then let me just zoom in a little bit here so you can see our proposed first floor plan renovations. This is an architectural drawing. It was recently submitted to DDOT. And to orient you, I put in these arrows. Well, here's McKinley Street. Here's the 32nd Street. Here's the entrance of our house. This is my living room, my dining room, my kitchen. And then this is the screened porch. This red arrow here is pointing to our property line. The yellow arrow is pointing to the current edge of our screened porch. And the blue line is pointing to where we are proposing to build out beyond this current structure. And so this is really the space we are requesting for a modification of the building restriction line regulations to allow for an extra 3 feet beyond the 4-foot allowance. And then here you see that we're also proposing to extend our front porch across in front of this new room, and all of our front yard is within compliance. We haven't heard any problems from DCRA. This is a drawing of the front of the house with the 2-level addition. So again, here's the proposed addition, here's the existing house. This would be the first floor room, and this would be the second floor room. And then this is our last slide. Let me zoom in again because of the panel. But the key points that we wanted to make is that the proposed structure as designed would be more than 13 feet from the sidewalk edge and still within the property setback lines. This allowance of the 3 additional feet should not in any way adversely affect the public. We don't have any safety concerns. There's no interference with adjacent houses or traffic, and no impact on public parking. The proposed structure, will certainly maintain the historic character of the house and be consistent with the character of the neighborhood. And as Mr. Zeldin noted, our neighbors have no objection to the proposed addition. Again, the intent of the space is for my father. He has some health conditions and he can't really manage the stairs. And we've had a number of people come through and look at our house and have told us that this location would be the best to maintain the character of the house and also to offer some privacy. And, for what it's worth, this proposal was approved by all of the DCRA review divisions in September of 2021, after we initially submitted it in November of 2020. The DDOT review, based on the public space regulations, was initiated in September after 3 full cycles through DCRA. And prior to submitting to DCRA pre-pandemic, John did have 3 in-person meetings with zoning reps down at DCRA, and each time was consistently instructed that the side yard setback could be the 8-foot line and not the building restriction line. And again, had we been advised that the building restriction line actually was the regulation to define our building limits, we wouldn't have initiated the finalized drawings. This has been, quite a lengthy process. So that's all we have. We will take any questions from the committee.
Okay, Denise, if you could take your shared screen down so we can see all the commissioners, that would be helpful. There, thank you. Any questions the commissioners have? You made a very good presentation. It was very helpful. Thank you. Between you and Michael, I think we've got the full story. Michael, you want to make a motion?
I move that we approve the request. Is that all I need to say?
That's all you need to say.
Is there a second?
Is there any discussion on it, Peter?
Oh, no, I was second.
Okay. All right, all those in favor? 7-0. Okay, well, thank you very much. And good luck before the Public Space Committee.
We'll definitely
And
need it. We know it's a long shot, but thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Thank you for your time. We appreciate it very much.
yeah,
Well, if there's anything, Lisa and Greg, if there's anything, or John, if there's anything that we can do, I don't know, Randy, does it make sense for me to show up with the Public Space Committee?
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And they will be interested in hearing from the commission on this.
Okay. So,
And
And-
also,
And we
Michael,
will be
also, go on, Randy.
Go ahead, Lisa. Go ahead.
Okay. One of the things you could do also, Michael, to just help them out, when you go into TOPS and fill in that information block, just fill that in as much as you can. And definitely, if you can attend the hearing, that's the best.
I got my training on TOPS.
Good.
I know now where to put my comments in. And then Greg and Lisa, Greg and Denise, I think you said that you're pushing to 24th March for that public space here. So if you would just remind me where I go and what time I get there, as the other commissioners can tell you, I need a lot of support.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I spoke with Ms. Felder the other day, and I think, this will be our first time too. But whatever information we can share from her, we'll send to you. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Commissioner Zeldin. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Michael, it would be important, I think, to emphasize to the Public Space Committee the public interest here, I think, and the public interest in, as expressed by the commission, is that this is the kind of thing that ought to happen. We ought to be able to have big spaces for family in our houses, and we ought to be able to do this. So I think it's important from that public policy standpoint, and that they need to understand that. Then they won't get it
Yeah.
otherwise.
I mean, to just add 3 feet to your home so that you can support your father and take care of him. I mean, come on, it's a no-brainer. So I hope that
Well,
they
you know,
approve
again,
it.
I'll just, we would be willing to move inward too. We're not trying to take up more of the yard. We already have a small property, but we have a chimney. So this, we can't move further
Right.
into the living room is what I'm saying. You know, we don't mind moving inward. We're not trying to just make this a giant home.
Right.
Thank you.
But thank
Thank
you
you
Okay.
so much.
for your
Good luck.
kind words.
Right.
Thanks, everybody. Should we just leave now?
Now I'll
He'll return you to an attendee position. So
Right.
yeah, it's okay.
You
Yeah,
can return to real
you
life
could,
soon.
right. Yeah, you could watch. You might want to listen in on some
Oh,
other
no,
things that we're
please
gonna.
don't.
No, we were like, oh, did you hear that about the speed hump? We've been wondering about all the speed bumps. We were happy to.
There's a lot going on with the changes there with DDOT.
Okay, and then we need to elevate the people for the next group and
The ward
Sherry
3,
Mallett.
ward 4. Abe?
Yeah.
Abe.
Who's going, Randy? Ward 3?
Jerry Mallett,
Jerry
Jerry
first? Okay.
Jerry Mallett's, Abe Clayman, and Janet Hallie's.
All right.
I think I got Jerry.
Now that name, Jerry Maltz, is very, very familiar. How do we know him?
Who was the third name?
Uh,
Janet?
Janet Hallie's.
I got her.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Abe Clayman, those guys look very familiar for some reason.
Yeah.
I've never seen them in my life. I don't know what you're talking
Okay.
I usually
The
wait
next item on,
till I'm asleep for my nightmares. I guess I'm wrong this time.
the next item on our agenda is one that we've dealt with off and on for several months now, and that is the redistricting. First at the ward, the redistricting for wards, and now we're looking at the redistricting for ANCs within wards. And that process is going on at the ward level through task forces that are set up in each ward. And so we ask both the Ward 3 Task Force Chair, Jerry Malletz, and the Ward 4 Task Force members, Abe and Janet, to come and speak to us about the status of that process right now and what we can expect from it, and answer any questions that commissioners may have. So we'll start with Jerry. You want to begin with Ward 3, and then we'll go to Abe and Janet.
Already a curveball. You told me I was going to go second, but that's not a problem. That's not a problem. I could go first. Not a big deal. So,
Okay. I'm sorry. I thought that's what you wanted, but that's okay.
no, that's okay. That's okay.
All right. Do you want to share your
Something's
screen?
never changed. Something's never changed. So.
Do you want to
So,
share your screen?
hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. And I'm glad to be on this with the Ward 4 redistricting task force people as well. And I'm just going to give you a little background, real brief, about what our process is. So we have 11-member task force for Ward 3, and we've met 6 times already. All of our meetings are public meetings, of course, every Tuesday at 7:30. We have 5 to go, including tomorrow. All of these meetings are an average of 75 minutes long. We get pretty good attendance. At our last meeting, we had about 50 people show up. We also have 2 ways that people can get in touch with us. We have a dedicated email address that we've received about 90 emails through that dedicated email address. We also have a Google form for people that want to submit things to the public record. We've had about 60 people that want to submit things to the public record. Anybody that sends us an email, they immediately get an email back that says, if you'd like what you wrote to us to be part of the public record, we'll enter it for you. So, some of those 60s and 90s are duplicates, but we've heard from an awful lot of people. So one of the main things, and I know that you're most interested in how we're looking at 3,4G, but just briefly, and I'm looking at another computer over here, so if my eyes wander, you're probably already aware of this, but the current ANC population in Ward 3, counting 3,4G as part of Ward 3 ANC, we gained about 7,000 people from 2010 to 2020. So since we had 43 SMDs and 6 ANCs, we're looking at some growth. The average SMD size was 2,020 people last time around. So we know that there's going to be some growth. So when we started looking at the numbers, what popped out very quickly was the number of Ward 3 residents that live in 3,4G is 6,832. Even if you took the upper limit of how much an SMD can have, which is 2,100, that would still leave us 532 over what you have for 3 SMDs. And if you had 1,900, we're just short 768 to have a 4th SMD. So one of the things that we're looking at is to create a new SMD for 3,4G. That would be in Ward 3, obviously. But we're still looking at different maps. That's just one of the things that we've talked about. But the numbers almost dictate that we consider that very strongly, because if not, what else do we do with the 532 people that we've gained over the last 10 years? So, and that's at the 2,100 level, not the 1,900 level. So that's what we're looking at right now. At tomorrow's meeting, we're going to we've been presenting maps as we go along, but at tomorrow's meeting, we're going to have some ANC boundary maps that we're going to show. This past week, we sent out to the task force members an email that listed the things that we've agreed upon so far, the things we're still to determine. I asked everybody for their written comments on that and any other comments. We now have a 13-page document that talks about how people agree on some things or some things we still need to shape. And it's been, a great experience. There are a couple of parts of Ward 3 that are much more interested in what we're doing than others. And if you come to one of our meetings, you'll see what I mean. But everybody, people that come and at every meeting, we have a public comment period, and they've been great comments, and people are really passionate about their views on some of these things. And all task force members are learning a lot. We've had just a few people from this ANC geographic area show up at our meetings. It's not as potentially controversial as other things that we're looking at. So that's where we are right now. And I hope nothing that I said is counter to what the Ward 4 people are about to say. If not, I want to go again. So,
what I'm going to suggest is that we let the Ward 4 task force members go, and then we'll have questions. Is that all right with commissioners?
That's fine. Absolutely fine. Thank you.
Okay. Abe and Janet.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Janet Hales, and I'm part of the Ward 4 task force, along with Abe. I live in the 16th Street Heights section of the city of Ward 4. And we have a few slides, and then we'll get into presenting the maps that we have thus far. So this is the redistricting. We want you all to stay engaged. I want to thank you, commissioners and the community, for being on the call tonight. We actually started meeting January 23rd every Sunday, and for a couple of hours, which is also recorded. And you can go to the website and see that information and listen to the meetings that we've had thus far. And you see the number there to also leave a phone call if you like. Our guiding values include the following. All of our meetings have been public, they are transparent, and they are all accessible. We have multiple ways that our residents can weigh in on the work that the task force is doing. And by the way, there are 16 members on the Ward 4 task force. Our mission is to rebalance for population equity and ensure fair access for all levels of local government. This is an apolitical task force. We will not have members on the task force that are current ANC commissioners or are running in 2022. And all of our meetings have had ASL interpretation and Spanish translation. Additional interpretation services can be requested within 3 days' notice. Next slide, please. Thank you, Abe. What is it? What is it that we're doing? It's a every 10-year opportunity to rebalance our populations for representation in local government. New ward boundaries were approved by DC Council in December. There were no changes to Ward 4. The Council Subcommittee on Redistricting is led by at-large council members Silverman, Bonds, and Henderson. Advisory Neighborhood Commissions, ANCs, are made up of the commissioners elected to represent the interests of their single-member district. Ward 4 currently has 6 to 10 SMD commissioners per ANC. Our redistricting task force will be updating SMD and ANC boundaries to create a recommendation for the DC Council of Ward 4's ANC and SMD boundaries for the decade ahead. We will, the DC Council will hold ANC SMD boundary hearings in April, and the council can make changes, and the final vote on all of this will take place in June. Next slide, please. Our statutory requirements. 2,000 is the big number. We try to rebalance our SMD populations to 2,000 plus or minus 5%. We try to have, we must have between 1,900 and 2,100 residents. And this is based on the 2020 census data. There is no minimum or maximum number of SMDs that must be in an ANC. An ANC may cross a ward boundary, but according to district law, each ANC must, to the greatest extent possible, be located within one ward. The ANC boundary recommendations prepared by the task force are not binding on the council. The report will go to the council within 90 days with the maps, meets, and the bounds. Next slide, please. And then our values, guiding values for ANC input. Current and former ANC commissioners are encouraged to testify and provide their insights on redistricting by means available to the public. And our next, I just want to point out here that our next time for a public hearing is March the 8th. Comments from individual commissioners or groups of commissioners outside of resolutions will be treated the same as public comments from individual non-commissioners. All the ANCs are encouraged to pass resolutions that comport with task force recommendations. Resolution will be responded to in writing, akin to treatment as great weight. That is, Ward 4 task force will respond to those resolutions in the final report with an explanation of why they agreed or disagreed with the recommendations of the resolution. ANCs are not required to submit resolutions. At least 2 task force members will facilitate each ANC presentation. At least 1 presenter will not be a resident of that commission. Task force members will not single out any one commissioner in any social media posts unless replying directly to a post initiated by the commissioner. Next slide, thank you. These are the factors that are taken into consideration when drawing the new ward and ANC boundaries. The council will take into account a wide range of factors when considering the new ward and ANC lines. It will look at population levels, age, race, voter turnout, income, education, geographic continuity, and many other data points. We want the council to consider a particular way that your community is unique. That's a question for you when you're drawing these boundaries. You also are encouraged to submit testimony to the subcommittee by emailing redistricting dccouncil.us. And then you see also the website there. And here we are with the helpful topics. If you guys decide to prepare a resolution, you might want to consider, I know this is your meeting and our next public meeting is March the 8th. So maybe you all will have a resolution, or you may just want to attend or provide public testimony before then. How many single member districts should be within a commission? Which roads or other features make wise natural borders between commissions or single member districts? How do borders impact the responsibilities across commissions or single member districts? How do borders impact the workload, responsiveness, attentiveness of a commission? Would a commission benefit from having additional or fewer commissioners? Now, these are things we want you to try to avoid. Why particular constituent who lives within a particular single member district should not have representation from a particular commissioner? Why particular businesses, public institutions, or community amenities should have representation from a particular commissioner or commission? Why a single member district should change due to a predicted future population changes? Why a single member district should change based on socioeconomic or racial demographics that could have the effect of diluting the voices of Black or Brown voters. Anything that gives the perception that one or more ANC commissioners are choosing their own constituents or voters. Those are the things that we're trying to ensure that we avoid. And now I'm turning it over to Abe, who will explain the draft maps that we have thus far.
Hi, everyone. We proposed 4 draft maps. We released them to the public and they're available on the website. The first 3 maps propose the same changes to the Ward 4 portion of ANC 34G. The 4th map proposes a different set of changes. The first 3 maps also propose a number of changes to other ANCs east of Rock Creek Park. I'm going to focus briefly on the changes proposed to the Ward 4 portion of 34G and ignore the other changes. If you're interested in them, you're more than welcome to look at them on the website. And I'm going to go on. So currently, 34G03 is a single member district that includes 3 census blocks west of Broad Branch Road in Ward 3. We've been advised that single member districts should all be within a single ward and should not cross ward boundaries. Randy also testified at our hearing earlier. He agreed with that as well. And so the first 3 maps all remove those 3 census blocks from 34G03. That has the effect of lessening the population in 34G03 and requiring a few new census blocks that are currently part of 34G04 to be added to 34G03. So there's actually 3 census blocks here, south of Lafayette, north of Nebraska, and east of Broad Branch Road. And if you go to the website, you'll be able to see this much larger. So I would recommend doing that. In this map, and again, in the other maps, there are no changes recommended to 34G01 or 34G02. And the only changes recommended are 3 census blocks from 34G04 going to 34G03 and 3 census blocks in 34G03 moving back to Ward 3.
Abe, which blocks are moving from 04 to 03?
They are, I believe it's either south of Morrison or south of McKinley. I can put that in the chat once I'm off the presentation and I can actually pull it up. I'm sorry, I don't have that right in front of me.
Okay.
Map number 2, again, same setup for the Ward 4 portion of 34G, but different changes in Ward 4. One of the things we discussed is adding a new ANC 4E that would encompass Crestwood and part of 16th Street Heights. Currently, there's 4A, 4B, 4C, and 4D, but there's been so much population growth in the ward And the way the geography is set up, we thought it might make sense to have a new 4E. Map number 3, again, 3,4G staying the same in this one. And then map number 4 would propose the most dramatic changes to.
Excuse me 1 second, Abe, I'm sorry, but map 3, my district 3G04 looks different than the previous map. It looks like it's bigger.
You know, I'm noticing that too, and perhaps I was looking at a different copy of it, but this is out of the 1900 to 2100 bounds, and so wouldn't really be appropriate. So the way I had left the meeting of this weekend was that all the first 3 were proposing were 3,4G04 losing 3 census blocks, 3,4G03 gaining 3 census blocks. So I'll double check on that. But again, I really was under the impression that was not the case. That this
but you can see it on the map itself, and then you can see the numbers that are attributed to it are different from map 2.
No, I see that as well. I'll have to get back to you about that. I'm not sure. And then the 4th map, and this would propose the most dramatic changes toward the Ward 4 portion of 3,4G. And the thinking here is that there's currently a sort of break in 3,4G01. The northern part of Aberfoyle Street is part of 3,4G02. And there was some thinking that perhaps having a more geographically compact single member district in 3,4G01 would be preferable. The effect of that, of course, is that others have to be redrawn in certain ways. And so I actually raised this at the task force meeting on Sunday, that I thought this was a little bit too much of a change, but others may disagree. And of course, everyone's entitled to their opinion. So I know that was quick, but we'll drop a link in the chat so people can take a look more closely at the maps. And if you haven't signed up for the mapping tool where you can actually play around with this, I'd encourage you to do that as well. We are holding a hearing on Tuesday, March 8th. That's a week from tomorrow, from 7 to 9 p.m., where anyone from the public is invited to testify and think about various questions like which option do they prefer, which parts of the map make sense, which neighborhood groupings will best serve Ward 4. And the website, again, is janiceward4.com/redistricting, and you can see all the maps there. Just as a reminder, some topics are helpful for ANC resolutions to address, some are not. We really do want to make sure that we're thinking about how these maps should be drawn and not trying to give any impression that ANC commissioners are choosing their own constituents or voters. And I know that no one here wants to do that, but we want to really avoid that impression. Again, we have a public hearing on March 8th. We are requesting all comments by March 11th. We then have a follow-up meeting on the 13th, the 20th, and the 29th. And on the 29th, we'll plan to finalize our report because it's due at the end of the month. So again, you can email ward4redistricting@dccouncil.us. You can leave a voicemail, 202-642-5714. And you can attend the hearing. That's from 7 to 9 on March 8th. The Zoom information is available at janiceward4.com/redistricting. Thank you so much. And I'll check on those maps right now so I can get some answers in the chat.
Okay. Lisa.
Yes. Do Abe, you guys have those maps that show the exact streets? Because I looked at them and I can't tell by what's produced on the map what street is what. Do you have it by the actual street level?
Only if you go
Yes.
into the system, right? Or
If you give me 30 seconds, I can explain exactly which 3 census blocks were changed for 04 to 03.
Well, that's not what I was talking about. Okay. Never mind.
Sorry. No, tell me what your question was then. Maybe I misunderstood.
My question is, looking at the map, do you guys have a map that shows each street delineated on the map? because the maps that you have, when I looked at it, it doesn't lay out like that. So I'm not interested in any, the only thing I'm interested in is the streets. Do y'all have it, you know, a map that shows each street?
I believe those were
On the map.
screenshots, and so I think we'd have to just zoom in, but we could absolutely provide that.
That
Yeah,
would be
it's,
very helpful for me walking the district, because the last map definitely broadens 34G01, and I need to walk that.
Okay.
So just so I know which streets that's affected by.
mhm.
Jerry.
Yeah, if I could respond to that. If you have an account and you just go on the mapping tool, most of these maps are available to the public. And with those maps, you can enlarge so you can almost see a house on these maps. So you could see every single street and you could find out exactly where the boundaries are. That's what we do when we play with the maps. When we show a map, we can't get that detail. So it's, you know, it's like what Abe was just showing. You just see a very general map, but if you go into the online tool, you could see it. And I'll just mention, and I dropped it into the chat, our website, which is chevychasenews.com/redistricting. We have maybe 50 different resources on there, including some maps that might help you, and the link to the online mapping tool, plus some other things that we created. And I'm sure Ward 4 people have something like that as well. But a lot of these things, you really have to get down to a very granular level to see the kind of information that you're asking about.
To the nitty gritty, it would just be so big, you wouldn't be able to see it on the screen if we got it to that granular level.
Mm-hmm. And one other thing I wanted to mention, when you mentioned that you have 16 members of your task force, I tried to get copies of all the 2010 task force reports, and I was stunned when the Ward 3 redistricting task force had 41 members.
Oh, wow.
Eight of which were sitting ANC commissioners. And so who knows what went on back then, but that's 41 and 8 sitting commissioners. We too don't have any sitting commissioners or anybody running for a ANC office.
Michael.
I would just ask that in evaluating these maps, one of the things that you take account of, and Abe, you and I emailed about this, is current SMD commissioner representation. So as I read map 4, for example, John Higgins would no longer be living in his ward, and I would no longer be living in my ward. So effectively, that map 4 change eliminates the two of us from our present. I suppose we could switch. I could run in his ward and he could run in mine, but I expect, as a matter of not choosing our constituents or not having our constituents choose us, but rather for consistency and representation. It takes a while for new commissioners, which John and I are both, to, as are Lisa and Connie and Peter and Chaz, everyone but Randy, to get to know our constituents. And so if you change our districts radically, as map 4 would do, then it sort of undermines a lot of what we've been trying to accomplish in turn to get to know our constituents and what their particular needs are. So I would just ask that you factor in that to your evaluative process.
Thank you. And I would encourage you, if you do a resolution, to include that. And if you don't, I would encourage you to put that in writing to Ward 4 redistricting at dccouncil.us so that we have that in writing. And, you know, I think, I don't want to speak on behalf of the task force too much, but I think making an argument that is centered around effectively representing constituents and recognizing what constituents need, I think is going to be more effective than an argument around how it might affect a sitting commissioner personally.
Yeah,
Gary?
I agree 100% with the last statement that Abe made. We are not supposed to look to protect
Right.
where a commissioner lives. We should be looking at this objectively and not that. Once we've drawn that, if there's somebody wants to bring up something like that, you can, but it's really against the, I don't know if it's legislation or protocols or anything else to protect sitting elected officials when you're drawing redistricting lines.
Well, Jerry, I'm not suggesting that I be protected or John be protected. In fact, each of us may not want to be protected. This may be, a godsend, but I say that facetiously. But the point is not, are you protecting either of us, but are you interfering with the commissioner-constituent relationship by not paying attention to it? So it's not, as you fashion the question, it's different.
Right, and that's why I agree with the first part, not the second part, that it needs to be couched that way.
Okay, Connie?
I was just curious, how did map 4 come about? What was, like, how did, like, why is 1, 2, and 3 the same and suddenly map 4 is so different? And I also didn't see like the population change, like for 01 and versus 02, which seemed much smaller than, and then also 03. So I'm just curious about just the background of that.
So we had a couple of working groups, and okay, good. I was just hoping you'd bring that up. A couple of work groups that met for each quadrant of the ward, and they came up with different looks. These are just different looks. And if you see something that you want further explanation on, we can receive that from you in writing, like you just mentioned, Connie. So
But
that we can.
I guess was the intention, like, I know that you said it's more compacted and it doesn't split, 01 and so forth, but what is that really from? Is that just from like looking at contiguous lines, or what's the motivating factor? I guess I'm just trying to understand the motivating factor.
So I think absolutely. That's a great question. I think two things. First, there are different groups within the 16, right? We're not all drawing the maps together. And so I was not present with the group that specifically came up with map 4. So I can't say this person said this or this person said that. But as it's been explained to me and as I understand it, one of the ways that maps are supposed to be drawn is to encourage geographic compactness. That is, that there isn't a break in any way. Now, you have to balance that with the size, how much change there is, and other rational things. But for the purpose of just answering your question, it's about 15 houses on the northern side of Aberfoyle that overlook Pinehurst Park that are part of 4G02, because the census block that includes those houses also includes a substantial portion of 31st Street Northwest. And so if you were to add those houses without splitting the census block, you would add them to you'd make a much larger 3-4G01. And so it wasn't done in the past for that reason. But I think some folks said, well, would it make more sense? Let's see what people think to have a more geographically compact 3-4G01. Personally, I don't think so, because I think it provokes significant change because you're dealing in such a small map area. But other people may disagree and may say, well, it's a little easier to navigate. Some folks, when you were commissioner, was that an issue? And I said, no, it wasn't an issue. It actually, made me and Shonda talk a little bit more because we had to figure out what to do about the east side of 31st Street or the north side of Aberfoyle. So I thought it was kind of an advantage personally. I hope that answers your question.
So I have a follow-up question, which is that when we look on the website of any of us, if you're looking at the maps, is there an explanation for the proposed maps, like for map 1, 2, 3? Like exactly my question, which is what motivated that change? Is that written down there so people understand how to respond to it?
Yes. So if you go to Janice for redistricting, which I believe you can all see right here, you can see the maps.
Okay.
You can also see the meeting presentation and recording from the 27th.
Okay.
And that's where our task force reviewed each map. And in the presentation, it talks about a couple of framing questions and how each map does or doesn't answer those framing questions. And so you can see a little bit more. But I think I've probably given as much detail as is in those, but hopefully that's helpful for people that are interested.
Thank you. And
in
I
learning
also
more.
just wanted to show my appreciation for the presentation. It's really nice to have the background very clear. And I'm going to post it on our website so that people are able to see that as well. Thank you.
Great, you're welcome.
John?
I was just wondering, one of the standards you had is the workload for different commissioners. And the number 4, which is pretty radical. How would that affect, the person absorbing where I am now in terms of added workload? The commissioner who would inherit that space.
I think it's a great question. And I think, that's something I think it's a rational argument against it. I mean, quite frankly, I think you're asking people to make a large change. That's one of the reasons that I wasn't sure. I will say this, I think it's important to keep in mind that there's been a significant population growth over the last 10 years in the ANCs east of Rock Creek Park. In this ANC, there's been about 7%. In 4A, B, C, and D, it's more like 15 or 20%. And so there's going to be some pretty significant changes to how those single member districts are drawn, because there have to be, because some now have 3,000 people instead of 2,000. And so in here, where you're dealing with how do we get from 2,200 to 2,100, there you're dealing with how do you get from 3,000 to 2,100. And so you have to break it up, which causes lots of ripple effects. And so I think, I would just, you're focused on ANC 304G, as you should be, but I also just want to recognize that, there will be some pretty substantial changes elsewhere out of necessity. There just have to be, including adding additional commissioners.
Jerry, before you go, I have a practical question. And that is, you asked for comments by, I think you said March 11th. We don't have another meeting until March 14th.
Exactly.
We can't have a resolution until then.
Exactly.
Would you accept a resolution that we adopt at our March 14th meeting? Is that too late? If so, we're not going to be able to give you a resolution that will get great weight.
We realize the time frame is really, really tight. And Abe and I were talking about this earlier, knowing that you guys were having the meeting tonight, and then the comments are going to be due next week. I think it's because we still have to, there's multiple steps we still have to go through to get it to the Office of Planning. Am I saying that right, Abe? The council has to see it, and then it goes to the planning office, and then it gets resolved and voted on. But I don't know. I can't answer that for sure, Randy, to say, yes, it will be accepted. I just don't know.
Can I make a suggestion about a possible way to,
Well,
we can check. I mean, we can ask Joanna, who's the
ask
staff
again.
person.
let's just have, I prefer a special meeting.
We could.
Personally, I prefer a special meeting.
You're more than,
We don't have
obviously you can do
enough
that.
meetings,
One thing I was going to suggest, if I may,
Right. What did you say, Randy? I didn't.
We don't have enough meetings already. We gotta
I
have
know.
another meeting.
This one's important, though. I mean, I think the
No, I
commission
agree.
needs to
I
yeah,
agree.
we need to have a resolution. We can't leave it to planning or any, email
Okay.
conversations. This is pretty important.
Okay, it's gonna be, we'll find a time to do it. It's gonna be a little difficult because there are a lot of things going on between now and then, but we'll try find the time to do it. Okay, we will get you a resolution by the 11th then.
When is your meeting? The 13th?
We meet
The
again
8th.
this Sunday. Oh, you're talking about your meeting. Okay.
No, you guys meet again on
They
Sunday?
meet March.
We meet every Sunday. Mhm.
Sunday, okay.
the
But they
public
also
hearing
have
is
a-
on March 8th, though.
Right.
Right.
There's two meetings. There's one on the 8th and one on the 13th.
Yeah.
And what I would say is, if you do decide to designate a commissioner to testify, and that testimony will serve as your resolution, we would absolutely accept that.
Mhm.
So just,
Another
obviously
way to
you
do
need
it.
to do what you need to do, but I think just so you know.
All right.
In writing.
Yeah, and we're unusual in the sense that we have two regular meetings every month. And for those commissions that don't meet only once a month, this is really going to create a bind for them, I would think, in terms of being able to have a meeting and a resolution on it. But we all have to adjust to the situation. So I understand.
I will check with Joanna to make sure, absolutely sure, and get back to you in the next day or two, just to be sure, because it is close. But I also don't want to say that you can do something and then take it back, because I'm honestly not sure.
We do have a very full agenda for March 14th too. So putting this onto that agenda would be a stretch. So maybe we do have to just have a special meeting. I think that's a good idea.
Okay, then in that case, I won't press it then.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Okay. Any other questions, commissioners? All right. Okay.
Thanks
All
very
right,
much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry.
All right. The next item on the agenda is one we've spent a lot of time on this month. We've had 3 special meetings on the Maret application to build a sports field at the Episcopal Center for Children. And this is coming before the BZA on a hearing on March 9th. The commission has to submit its resolution or its report to the BZA by March 2nd. We had originally planned to consider a vote at last Thursday's meeting on the 24th, a special meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had, but we wanted to make sure we heard all the comments that were made at that meeting. And there were also some additional developments that occurred. And so we wanted to make sure that we had the latest information and so we could take the vote tonight. We also published on our website and on the various listservs and Nextdoor the final version of our resolution and the accompanying conditions that were an attachment to that. And that's been on the website since yesterday. Unfortunately, that was as quickly as we could get it up to the website. But let me just highlight a few of the changes. There weren't a lot, but there were a few that were necessary because of the information that we'd received, both at our meeting and in some subsequent events. The first was to update everything that was in the resolution for the most recent information. For instance, we added comments that were received from Maret and ECC and Friends of the Field. We also reflected the actions that were taken by the Public Space Committee on the curb cut on Nebraska Avenue. And we also reflected the DDOT and Office of Planning reports that were filed on Friday with the BZA. Second, we added references to the ECC stormwater infiltration pit, which was raised at our meeting last Thursday. And we talked about how that would be handled in the future. Third, we addressed the significance of the closure of the Oregon Avenue and possible permanent closure of Beach Drive on the comprehensive transportation review. And that was also something was raised at our February 24th meeting. Fourth, we added a condition that required continued maintenance of the stormwater system. That was something that we discussed at our meeting as well. Fifth, we added a provision permitting a change in the hours of usage if it was requested by the ANC and Maret and modified by the BZA. We just wanted to give some flexibility if things change, and if the ANC and Maret and the BZA all agree that the change in usage should occur, then it would be permitted. Sixth, we wanted to incorporate the DDOT and Office of Planning recommended conditions. Both of them had additional conditions, some of which we had already included in our attachment to the resolution, but we wanted to make sure that we covered all of those and included those as conditions as well. 7th, we wanted to make the ANC commissioners the members of the Maret Project Task Force that will oversee compliance with the construction conditions. We just believe that the ANC has the best overall view of what's going on and that we'll be able to act in that capacity with other designees. We also included a provision that we could designate others to be on that task force as needed. 8th, we set a cap on the amount of fines during the construction period. There was a cap in the Ingleside matter as well. And this is a much shorter construction period, so the cap is somewhat lower. 9th, we put in, we wanted to clarify the continuing responsibilities to comply with the conditions so long as the field continued to be used primarily as a private school athletic field. We didn't want either Maret or ECC to be able to shed these conditions if the field continued to be used as it's planned to be used now. Of course, if it were changed completely and there was something else to be done there, these conditions wouldn't apply in those circumstances. There were also several blanks in the proposed conditions, exhibit numbers to the BZA, for instance. There were a whole lot of those. I have gone through now, and this is even subsequent to posting it yesterday on the website. I filled in all of those blanks so that we've got all the exhibit numbers. One of the things we really wanted to do in this resolution is to provide the background for all of the things we relied on. And therefore, we included links to almost everything that we cite in the resolution or in the conditions for that matter, so that people can go readily to see exactly what's the background for that. And we've got a lot of those things. Connie has just done a fabulous job of putting things up on our website so that we've got a very comprehensive set of documents on our website. And we hope that the resolution will be a tool for people to be able to find those things on the website. With the adoption of the resolution and the attached conditions, the commission will submit these documents to the BZA. And there's a specific provision in the zoning regulations that provides for an ANC report and has some specific content of that report that has to be included. And all of that is reflected really in Form 129 at the BZA. And so we will submit this resolution with Form 129 at the BZA, and that will satisfy their requirements for an ANC report that is entitled to great weight. So I'm going to make a motion, and then if it gets a second, we'll have the discussion by the commissioners, and then we'll take a vote. Because I don't think there's any need for us to hear anything further. We've heard lots and lots and lots from the community, from Maret, from ECC, from DDOT and Urban Forestry and DOEE. We've heard from everyone, I think, at this point. So I will make the motion that we adopt this resolution and the attached proposed conditions and submit that to the BZA as the ANC's report. Is there a second? Okay, discussion. Anybody have anything they want to talk about?
I just want to say to you and to John Higgins on the public record, what a terrific job you've done in trying to accommodate as many of the interests in our community as can be accommodated.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chaz?
Randy, if I could as well, since I came to this late in the game, I have to say that the not just the work you guys did, but the work that Friends of the Field, Maret, both did to present things clearly and forcefully was very helpful to me catching up and joining you in this resolution.
Okay, if there's no further comment or discussion, then we can take the vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. 7-0. Okay, thank you very much. This is the first step, at least, in getting a resolution of these issues. John and I just do want to make sure that we agree that John and I will represent the commission at the BZA. Is that satisfactory for everyone?
Absolutely.
Okay, because we have to be designated on the Form 129 as the spokespersons for the commission.
Do you need a vote?
Yeah, why don't we vote on that? Just everyone, all in favor?
I propose that John and Randy represent the commission at the BZA hearing.
Okay, all those in favor? 7-0. Okay, thank you, Peter, for making this all legal.
Yeah. I noticed that John's hand went up the last.
You're very perceptive, Michael.
You were thinking it over.
All right, the next is a report on the small area plan process from Connie and Peter.
I was just going to say that the Office of Planning held their open house on February 23rd from 3 o'clock to 7 p.m. I was there from 3:30 to about 6, and there were many people there where what the Office of Planning did was in holding this open house was in response to the commission talking to the director of OP, asking for another way to bring our community together because the design community workshop that they had, we felt was too brief. It was 2 hours long. There were a lot of people there. They broke it into 14 groups, but 2 hours was not enough time in sharing all of the images that they shared with us. And so in preparation for the open house, their internal group, the urban design group, worked on images, a few more images, which are all posted on publicinput.com/Chevy Chase. Unfortunately, those images are not typical, like in a typical small area plan. Those images would have happened sooner. And what their contractor, Cunningham Quill, is doing now to prepare for the draft small area plan, more of the renderings, that would have taken place at a more typical design charrette. So we didn't get that. And part of the reason we didn't get that was because there was such a delay within the Office of Planning's, I guess, grants folks in getting this contractor on board. You know, that was our, you know, the heartburn we had all through the fall was that they just couldn't get this person summer to fall to get this company on board. And then they did. They did prepare some of the massings that we saw for the community design workshop held in January, but it was not enough. And that's why we complained and we wanted to see more. And at the open house, they did have more and they had great big posters, and those boards are up on their website and you can see it. It has all the details there. And Anita Kozart, the director, was there. Her chief of staff was there. The head of the urban design team was there. You know, the project team was there. There were a lot of people who were there from OP, and many community people showed up. And I would say, you know, as a unofficial count, maybe 100. And it was not, you know, it was not a big room, and people were masked. But you know, we're still in a pandemic. But we did have lots of conversations, and I thought that they did a fairly good job of holding it for that long and allowing people to come in and speak to different folks. The next step, I believe, is they're going to draft this. I haven't heard anything else except that we may have our last community advisory committee meeting sometime in preparation for this draft. I think at that point we can share with them our thoughts about the whole process and any other anything else that we want to ask them about before they show us this draft plan. And that's all I really have. But I was happy to be able to talk to some senior people and to understand what is it that we were seeing. And I think that I don't think it's going to happen maybe for Friendship Heights or for Cleveland Park when they go through their small area plan. I think it was just unfortunate really for us, but we do have some images. And I'm going to say this again, there were people there who were still confused about who does what. And I think it's just a process. Development is just confusing for a lot of people. And when they see anything up there, they think it's going to happen. And but OP was taking notes. So any of the proposed like opportunity sites, if they saw like a building above it and the setbacks and everything, and people said, oh my God, this is this, or this is that, or I like this, or I don't like that, they were taking Post-it notes and they were hopefully giving it all back, and they were all going to talk about it. But that's something I'm going to ask the project team when we do meet at the next CAC meeting. I'm going to throw it over to you, Peter, because you were there also. Chaz was there also. Randy was there as well. So we had 4 of us out of 7 that I saw. I don't know if Lisa was able to show up, or Michael or John, but we were there for plenty of hours.
Well, I won't dwell on this. I think the community turnout exhibited the fact that this community is very concerned about these issues and about what's going to happen to their core. I think the images that were shown were really subpar. And I think we are going to face a very difficult time when it comes to commenting on the draft plan, because we're going to face a community that is going to feel either like they didn't have the faintest idea what was going on. And the number of people at this session who said they'd never heard about this was overwhelming. Or we're going to face people who say, we've been following it all along and we just didn't have anything to go on. In any case, this is not a time to debate this. I just say I have a different view than I think Connie's and then perhaps others of you about whether or not this was an appropriate response to the concerns we raised after the design workshop in January. I don't think it was. So we can move on. I mean,
I just to let you know, Peter, I did speak to, I'm forgetting her name right now, the head of the urban design group who showed up toward the end. I think Chaz and you both spoke to her before I did. And I really pressed her on it. And she said that the reason they hire a contractor is that they're short-staffed to be able to do these kinds of renderings. But they did do it for the open house because we really were asking for it. But that they had the contractor doing it for the draft small area plan. I was like, well, shouldn't we have seen that sooner? And I kept pressing and pressing, and then the explanation was it was because they came so late that we didn't. And so I was like, so in a typical design shirt, we would have seen these things now. Like you could play with it in person. It was also because of the virtual versus in person. Like if you were in person, they could show it and you could say, well, what would this look like if I change this? Because we were virtual, we really couldn't do it. And they really tried to build out that virtual format for us. But I think we're the first to go. And because the last one that they did was 2015. So we're the first to go in this virtual kind of environment. And it doesn't play as well, like in person really did feel different at the open house, I felt, right? And being able to see things, point to things, say something, then making some changes. So I think that's what happened, was both the inability to get this contractor on board and this virtual environment and the timing, because they have other SAPs coming up. They got to finish this one, I think. They're now pressed. So it's exactly a year since they started in March, like meaning the kickoff.
Okay, Peter, I generally agree with your comments about the open house. I thought it still left a lot of gaps.
Exactly. Definitely did.
Okay, anything else on small area plan? Okay, shall we go to the report on the Racial and Social Equity Standing Committee? Lisa, you attended only part of that meeting, so maybe the last meeting, so maybe you want me to give a brief summary?
This run for office isn't having any effect whatsoever.
Okay.
Thank you.
The committee met on February 16th as our monthly meeting, and the discussion primarily focused on ways to work with the Mayor's Office of Racial Equity. This has been created fairly recently, and I think they're getting their legs now and understanding what they're going to do, and they were interested and anxious, I think, to meet with us. We have a meeting scheduled with the director on March 11th, And the primary topic would be the creation of a racial awareness network. And that's something that had been discussed in the community group back when we had the task force, and is still a topic that we want to continue to pursue. We also discussed the possibility of preparing testimony at the fiscal year 23 budget hearing for the Office of Racial Equity, because they seem to be pretty understaffed for the kind of tasks that they have ahead of them. And we want to make sure that they're adequately funded. And they are part of the Office of the City Administrator, and the Council's Committee on Housing and Executive Administration oversees the Office of the City Administrator. And the budget hearing for that agency is on April 7th. And so we talked about the probable need for the ANC to consider some testimony on that, which I hope the committee will be instrumental in helping to draft, particularly after our meeting on March 11th with the director. And we can consider that then at our March 28th meeting ahead of the hearing on the 7th of April. So that was basically the focus of our meeting. Lisa, you have anything else you want to add to that?
No, not that I could think of offhand.
Okay. Peter?
Could you clarify? So the issue of developing a methodology for looking at all sorts of planning, including small area plans, through a racial equity lens, has been discussed a good deal. My understanding, much of this comes from Lisa, is that the council, in passing the amendments, told the Office of Planning to develop that methodology. Now, one of my many confusions about this is, who oversees that? Does CORE or does the councils?
No.
Who?
No, there's the council has their office, the mayor has her office with her equity officer, and that equity officer works with the district agencies to make sure that any work in the district has that racial equity lens put to it. So they're separate, but the themes are the same.
Which agency has the ability to force the issue? Because my strong impression, and I think this is Lisa's too, is that there's no there right now. I mean,
right.
And so who does that? I mean, I just,
it's nothing.
Neither.
There's no policy. There's nothing that has kind of really put that operationalized. So I know I got an email about that in terms of our Chevy Chase SAP.
Right.
There's nothing, I believe, that OP has finalized that enables them to put that lens in place and operationalize. Or I don't know that the Office of Racial Equity has that in place as well.
When I looked online, they had listings of district agencies that they have worked with in order to plan out how they're going to do that.
Yeah.
And then I heard from another constituent of our ANC that Director Cozart said something about using a racial equity tool to examine the SAP. And so that tool is a tool that the Office of Racial Equity is supposed to develop in collaboration with each of these agencies, right?
Right.
So,
right.
and
It's
she's
not
only
developed.
come aboard since April of 2021. So she's not been there. That director has not been there for more than a year. It's just been 10 months.
Yeah, so we're saying the same thing. The bottom line is it doesn't exist now. It's all in process. So we don't have it yet.
But the question I was asking is there anybody to go to about that other than OP?
Well, yeah, the first step, maybe we can ask those questions on the 11th.
At that meeting. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But with the ASAP, there are actually two shots at this, because CORE will look at it as well, because it does come before the council for approval.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
this is not the only examination that they would have for this.
Yeah. And I would think that by the time the mayor has her hearing for the SAP, that office will look at it as well. That's
Should have,
what I
yes.
think. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, anything else on the race committee? Okay. The next item is the discussion of possible vote on testimony at the oversight hearing for the District of Columbia Public Schools. Michael?
Yes, so I've circulated my testimony back on February 23rd and recirculated it, I thought, on Saturday, but it didn't go out. And so I recirculated it tonight. But the differences between the February 23rd draft and tonight's draft are more housekeeping than substantive. And the issues that the testimony addresses are the overcrowding at Lafayette, sort of a follow-on from our Military Road discussion where we're saying to DCPS and the council, you guys have to look into what you're going to do about Lafayette's overcrowding issue. You can't wait till the very end and spring it on the community like the Military Road proposed solution was. Then the testimony goes to teacher hiring and retention and the observation that there is a hiring and retention problem in the city, in the country, actually. And we're asking the city council to make sure that they're looking into this because obviously you need teachers and you need to retain teachers who want to continue to be there. Then the testimony talks about the relationship between DCPS and WMATA and this issue of if we eliminate the E6 and there's no micro transit service alternative put in, then we are making it very difficult and unsafe for children who relied on the E6 to get to school. And we're asking them to look into that. We've asked, the next question is COVID-related issues, and a lot of families that I talked to in preparing the testimony said that they remain confused about the policy and when parent volunteers are allowed back into school and what is DCPS doing about the learning gaps that COVID has exacerbated. And so we're asking for the testimony, asking for questions on that. Then an issue came up in talking to a number of families, and that relates to dyslexia and the diagnosing of it in schools. And there was just passed the Addressing Dyslexia and Other Reading Difficulties Amendment Act of 2020. It was just funded in October of this year. And there was a lot of concern that the DCPS really was not well equipped to ascertain whether there were reading difficulties with children and if there were, whether they were identifying them early enough to be most impactful. And so this says we're grateful that the act has been fully funded and now the rubber meets the road. Is it going to be implemented? How it's going to be implemented? How is it going to be? How is its implementation going to be measured? And what sort of reporting will there be? And so it asks those questions. And then the last one is the relationship between DCPS and GGS. And that relates to the number of situations where the school has identified a problem. Like in Lafayette, I was told that the elevator didn't work for several months, which meant you couldn't get to the second floor if you were unable to walk up the stairs, which there was a second grader where the second grade classrooms are up there, who wasn't able to get to her classroom. And so they had to move her classroom down into the library, take over the library, and make all these workarounds for the 3 months it took to repair the elevator. And, you know, I get it that maybe there's parts difficulties with COVID and stuff, but when you think about the stigma that it imposes on a child who is essentially causing the school to lose access to its library, to accommodate the fact that she can't get upstairs. I mean, it's just not acceptable. So I asked them what's going on with these long delays between repairs and identification of the repairs. And so that's the testimony in a nutshell. Orally, I'll probably pick just 2 or 3 of these things to talk about, and I'd be interested if among these things that I've just identified, you guys have a sense of what. In 5 minutes, how many minutes do I get? 3, 5?
5.
In 5 minutes, given my slow speaking rate and my lack of fluency in English, it appears, I may be able to get to 2 or 3 of these things. So do people have, for discussion, if you will, do people have a sense of what 2 or 3 they'd like emphasized orally?
Michael, let me add, I'll answer your question, but I want to add a couple things. One of the issues that's come up in my single member district with schools, and I've actually worked with a couple of parents and had a meeting with the director of athletic budgets, is that athletic budgets and also, oh my God, I just forgot the name of it, club budgets. That is a real issue across the city, especially for clubs. I won't go into the response on the athletic budgets. The parents seem to think that that is an issue, and they would love to see some transparency into that and have those budgets raised. But the club budgets are probably a little bit more problematic because they don't get funded by the school. Their funding is a little different, and parents make up a lot of that supplemental stuff. So you have parents, like I have a parent that's paying over $1,000 in club fees for their kids' sports. I would love to like add maybe a line or 2 in there advocating for increased athletic budgets, the transparency overall in the athletic budget, and supporting club budgets more. And part of the concern was, we have a lot of issues with juveniles, we have crime issues, we have a lot of things going on. And schools now and parenting groups are pushing out of school time, which is basically, anything outside of school that's educational or recreational. But when you have families that have to pay $500 for a club fee, families in our community might not be able to afford that, as well as families in other communities. It's just really exorbitant, and you're going to miss a lot of kids that way. So it would be nice if we could advocate for that. Going back to the elevator situation, that's happening, I think also in schools across the community. My son was talking about that in Wilson, and he specifically mentioned a kid there that I believe was in a wheelchair, and it was not a good story. I mean, it's really shameful. So I think that would be an important one to highlight. Anything that, impeding the progress of learners, and particularly learners with special needs, I think we should really highlight that. Other consideration, and I don't know if this has ever been done, because I think everything you mentioned there is critical. This is a really good testimony, and this is the type of testimony that I really love, is let's break it up. I mean, maybe you get 5 and we get 5 and we do, the whole thing. I think this is like really important for us to advocate for just about everything on here.
Yeah, the only problem is that you had to sign up by 5 o'clock today. And so we can't get a second oral unless
Usually, when you have more than one person representing an organization, one person gets 5, the other one gets 3. So yeah, so it doesn't really give you twice as much time. Connie?
I'm sorry, but so Lisa, I'm sorry, Connie. So if we only have 5, so we can't break it up, and I can only do sort of 3 of these things. I mean, I could try to do 5, but if I could only do 3, what's your top 3?
Wow, it's hard, but I would go with definitely dyslexia, and the DGS situation, because I know I've heard stories of that myself, where handicapped kids can't make it up to their classrooms, and that's just shameful. And the WMATA issue. That's me.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Michael. And the other issues, they're going to get some play by other people too. The COVID issue, for instance, and the
retention, definitely
teacher,
retention.
yeah, and even I think probably the overcrowding at Lafayette may get some attention as well. But the things that are probably going to get neglected a little bit are the learning issues and the DGS issue. I think that will be different from a lot of other people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Connie?
Michael, thank you for this testimony. I wanted to add to the chronic overcrowding the point that if the mayor wants more affordable housing built, more developments, and bringing in more families, we really do have to address this overcrowding. I keep hearing pushback, like, how can we do this if we're already overcrowded? And I don't want us to then decide, well, then we're going to forego families and just, maybe we'll just only have seniors. I mean, I feel like that is not the solution to a problem, which we have identified through our information exchange series, where apartment dwellers who've rented would love to purchase and they'd love to have bigger units, and because they have families and and those families need to send their kids to school. And if other people move in here, we have to accommodate them. And so I think that's a really critical piece. The other thing about COVID that's not here, I mean, you have a lot of questions here, is that I don't know how transparent the district has been on the numbers, like the cases themselves. I keep seeing on Twitter a lot of sort of unhappiness about like the running numbers and then numbers disappearing. So it's the statistics for us to have a better sense before. I mean, I get emails, of course. My daughter goes to Deal, so I get emails. There was 1 positive case, 10 positive cases, 9, 5, but I don't know. It's additive, like what is it really? It would be really nice to know if it's there, and if it's been really kept up. It's updated frequently so that when the mayor makes an announcement that vaccination mandates are over and the masks are over so quickly, that we already feel like we've been charting it ourselves. So I'd like those 2 changes. I think that's important.
So I've typed in here transparency around COVID case numbers. And what was the other one?
Well, it's just COVID case numbers basically, and by student and by faculty. I mean, the staff. I just don't think we have that. And it would be nice to know, right?
Yeah.
I would be nice to know that.
It would be.
All right, I just added the question.
Yeah.
And then the priority, I don't disagree with Lisa, Randy, and you, but I still think that there's some big issues like the overcrowding and the transportation. Maybe you could just mention it quickly, like these are perennial issues, and just say it like quickly, and then go straight into these are issues that may not get as much play. So I'm going to focus my testimony on that, but your written testimony will have everything that you'll submit. But that transportation issue really bothers me. In the beginning of the school year, there were parents who said that their kid was just waiting for the bus outside Deal, which is the M4, forever. That's not good. These are still little kids, in middle school. And so their parents are waiting. They're not getting the call. They don't know when the bus is coming. It's not still reliable. And if we don't have the E6, I mean, I just feel like we've got to make better. We have to do better. So the Ramada issue is really key.
Yeah. We don't take it. I don't wait in the morning anymore for the M4. That's how I know about that pothole.
That you and I have noticed. I know. And my daughter who's in college, she was taking the bus at one point, but she's like, Mom, I missed 3 buses because by the
Yeah,
time it got to her, it was so crowded. And
yeah.
then of course, it's difficult to get down. But anyway, I just say that because I think we need to figure out smarter ways. And if the microtransit study, which I want to say that we are part of the study, and I'm going to follow up to find out when are they going to interview people? What are they going to do? How are they doing the study? But if in fact we're going to be studied, I'd like for them to tell us if there's more ways for us to help our community, because we are overcrowded and we need to get to school. So like these two things are tied. Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you, Michael.
All right.
Okay.
Lisa, I wrote an additional paragraph at the end of the testimony which says budget-related issues. That's the header. We've advised that the budgeting process for the coverage of sports programming as well as club fees is inadequate and presently implemented. The budget requires families to spend personal funds for their children to participate in club activities. We asked the council to look into this matter and provide us feedback.
I love it. Can you shoot it to me and I'll shoot it to my parents just to give them a okay? When do you need that back by?
Randy, when do sent you an email earlier. When do I have to submit the written testimony?
You can submit it really anytime, but they prefer to get it a day ahead because that gives them an opportunity for the council member to look at it.
Okay.
That's really
I can probably
advantageous.
get it turned around in a day, Michael.
Do you want my whole test? Do you want the whole testimony with the whole paragraph, with all of it, or just this last paragraph?
Just the last paragraph.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
With those modifications, is there a motion then, Michael, to adopt the testimony on behalf of the commission?
I move that you adopt the testimony on behalf of the commission and that Lisa Gore give it.
Okay.
No.
Damn.
Aside from that last bit,
Why did you need to be paying attention at that moment?
is there a second?
Filling potholes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Yeah.
All those in favor? 7-0. Okay. Good luck, Michael.
Thank you very much. I'm number 70. I'm number 78.
Wow.
No.
Today I testified about DC Water. I was actually number 1.
Yay.
What's the best way to
close.
what's the best way to figure out when number 78? Should I just multiply 72 by 5?
There is no best way.
No, there isn't.
There's no
Because
best way.
this morning, a lot of people did not show up. And
Exactly.
So it gets to you more quickly than you think
Yeah,
sometimes.
I take my wife to Johns Hopkins. So
Oh.
I want to, I'll be available, but if for some reason I have to go into a room or something like that, then
Yeah.
it's not, I don't know how much they pay
Oh.
attention. I don't know how much they pay attention to the oral versus the written in any event, but
Yeah, they do. They really do. And I think it does make a difference.
well, I will do my
orally.
damnedest to
Okay.
do it. I don't have to go out to Hopkins until 1, so theoretically
Okay.
I should be in the morning for this
Okay.
testimony.
Yep, hopefully.
So,
All right.
Randy, before we get to commission business, there has been a question in the Q&A from Rick that's been there for a long time from the beginning. So and he's still on the line. So I think is it possible to,
No.
did we address,
We're not.
so we're going to address the DDOT thing. Michael said at the beginning of our meeting
Right.
that we will bring Christian back in to tell us how are they doing this, because they were supposed to notify us after they do a study and before they make a decision, like once they make a decision to put in speed humps, they're supposed to give us 30 days to
No,
respond.
It
And
depends.
it depends on, okay,
Depends on the,
that's a
on the issue. If it's going to
Okay.
get rid of parking or change
deal
the
with it.
road, that's 30
Okay.
days. Otherwise, it's 10 days. That's why I want to have it then.
Got
And
it.
I've given
Okay.
Rick
Yeah.
and his wife
Okay,
all of the information that I have. I have
that we,
nothing
yeah,
more to give.
okay. I just want to be clear, just make sure that we're clear about that again, one more time, because
Yeah.
people
And
get
do we-
anxious.
Do we
Okay.
want them on, do we want to invite Christian on the 14th or the following one? What's our agenda?
Not the 14th. The 14th is just jam packed, as you'll see. You'll hear in just a couple of minutes.
Okay, so
No way we can do it.
So March 28th is when I'll ask.
28th.
him.
Okay. All
Right.
right.
And the fact that the city is working now, we can't undo what
Stop it.
they're doing.
Yeah,
They've done
that's a
it
DDOT
with
issue.
trafficking. They're doing it pursuant to their traffic engineering studies, and
Yeah.
the vast majority of these speed humps are being installed at the request of individual citizens.
Okay, we're not addressing
Okay.
that at this meeting.
Okay.
Okay, commission business. The minutes, I think Peter circulated the one for the February 16th. Is that right, Peter?
I did two. I did the 14th and the 16th, but I haven't got the 24th finished. So
Okay.
I'm taking edits from you, and I'm going to correct Connie's name, which I spelled. I dubbed her Commissioner Change. I'll get that fixed.
Autocorrect.
But with those modifications, I move that we approve the minutes for the 14th and our special meeting the 16th.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Thank you.
7-0. Okay. John, you want to talk about any financial issues?
John, you're on mute.
All right, okay, yes, we have two checks to approve tonight. One is to Verizon for $155.76. We have a Zoom reimbursement to Randy for $222.58. So I move approval of those two checks.
Second.
All those in favor? 7-0. Okay.
Okay, I have one more item. I've been kind of busy lately. So one of my tasks fell through the cracks, and that was to submit our form and payment for the ANC Security Fund. I was going through my catch-ups today or a couple of days, well, this weekend, and I found that it was due February 28th. So I need to get signatures on the forms tomorrow if I can. I need signatures from Randy, from Peter, and from Lisa. I also have to go to the bank and get a form signed by the bank, and I have to get a copy of the signature card all to go with these things. And I have the check for $25. I sent a note to Kathy Patterson's office saying, apologizing for the delay, and that we would get it to them no later than next week. And they seem to be okay with that, but I want to get this out of the way and in the mail. So my question is, Randy, Peter, and Lisa, are you available between 12 and 3 tomorrow to sign these forms?
You want us to come down to you?
I could come to your house or whatever,
Can you do me right at 12? I have I got to take my vehicle in for service at 1 in Bethesda.
Okay, I mean, I'm an early riser. I could be at somebody's house 8:30 to 9 just for that. If you're,
I'm around.
I tell you what, I'll take a hike down to your place just because I need the exercise. So I'll be there I'll ping you, but at 8:45. No,
Okay.
at 8:30. At 8:30, I'll be there at 8:30.
Yeah, and I'll swing by right after I drop my son off at Wilson.
And that'll be in the morning?
Yep, he has free period in the morning, so probably around 10:45.
10:45? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, does that work for me?
Lisa,
Okay.
10:45, Peter,
8:30.
8:45,
All right.
and Randy, 6 a.m.
I don't sleep either.
Okay.
Okay, we have a ton of things on our March 14th meeting. The things that I have right now are, in addition to our regular reports, Presentation and discussion by the chairs of the Lafayette School Local School Advisory Team, the LSAT. Presentation by and discussion with Aaron Mars, the chairman of the Boy Scouts of America in Washington, on scouting's impact on the community. Discussion and just in that one. Discussion and possible vote on the testimony of the council's budget hearings. These are the agencies that are up that we need to do that meeting, or we don't get the commission testimony. Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions. And I will tell you that in this group that I've been working with of commissioners across the city, 2 commissioners from each ward, ACTOs, we are preparing a budget testimony on that. And so I don't really think our ANC necessarily has to do anything, because the group is going to have a budget proposal. The Department of Aging and Community Living, there are some issues there, I think. The Office of Planning, Department of Buildings, the new Department of Buildings, if we want to talk anything about that, DCPS. And there's another opportunity where we could talk about the athletic budget and the club budget at that budget hearing. The next item is discussion and possible vote on the public space permit for the application by the National Park Service for a wayside exhibit at 1 Chevy Chase Circle. This is the wayside exhibits that we've been talking about for so long, and they've put in a public space permit application to put it in public space. So that's something we clearly want to weigh in on. Discussion and possible vote on the development plans at the Lisner home. That's something we put off from this meeting. Matt Fruman has asked for 45 minutes for that. I don't know that we can give him that long. I told him that that's a lot more than we would ordinarily give for something like this. And it's not even in our ANC, but yeah, it certainly is nearby and something that we have been interested in. I know there are a lot of people in our ANC interested in that. So,
Yeah, especially with the 93 affordable housing units, they're getting funding from the Housing Production Trust Fund. That's what I'd like to understand a little bit more.
Right. Well, and there's also, I mean, one of the things we talked about is and this is the testimony about the Department of Aging and Community Living, is a Ward 3 senior wellness center. And that's something, if we want to push it, that's the place for the budget to get money for the what do we call it, a study of doing that, a preliminary study.
A feasibility study, right? Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the other thing, that's what I've got for the 14th, but we want to have a special meeting to talk about the redistricting. What's a good time?
I cannot do it at all. March 7th and 8th, I'm not available. I am not available March 4th to the 8th at all.
Okay.
For commission stuff.
Okay.
So
when is it due?
11th.
It's
due
the 11th.
Okay.
The 9th, John and I will be tied up all day with the BZA hearing, I suspect. But the evening, I think is probably all right. I could do the 9th or the 10th. And we really need to have, we ought to have a week's notice. So really, it should be the 9th.
Well, either of those is fine with me.
It'd be good for me.
John, you think we're going to be able to still be standing at the end of the day on the 9th?
Yeah, 9th would be okay. 9th or 10th are okay with me.
Okay.
Just do it on the 10th. You need a breather. Seriously, it's too much.
The question is, if it's due on the 11th, how much?
Yeah.
At close of business.
Well,
yeah,
so
as long as we've got a resolution, which I think somebody needs to draft. And it ought to be probably one of us from Ward 4 who does it, because that's the one that's
affected.
That's the only one that's really irrelevant there. And I think it's very simple, really. The points we made tonight, I think, were quite good. And both, particularly the continuity issue, I think, is one that we can emphasize. But
So tell me the issues. I'll try to draft something. Continuity, because I know that because I said it until Jerry Mallett's.
And I think the contiguous area is not quite as important as they seem to think it is. I mean, we
I
clearly,
agree.
yeah.
I agree. 100%.
This is not a big, huge area. We can all.
It's not.
Right.
Not at all.
It's not. Yeah.
Okay.
We also, I mentioned, workload on commissioners.
Oh, yeah, workload. That's a very good. I mean, one thing is you don't want to put Lafayette with ECC right now.
Right.
That would be a real bad move.
Yeah.
And I think basically the way it's split right now is pretty good.
I think so too.
Works pretty well.
It
So,
works very well.
yeah.
Although
Okay,
every
so
time-
What are you gonna do? The 10th?
The 10th, and it might not be, this doesn't have to be a 2-hour meeting.
Thank
We
you.
can have
Thank you.
this one can be a shorter one.
Okay.
So I will send out I'll prepare an agenda and I'll send out a notice for the 10th.
Okay, so but I'm sorry, I have continuing of SMDs, contiguous areas, workload on commissioners. Is there a fourth item?
I can't think of anything, but we might, when we see a draft, we might think of something new, but.
Okay.
But I think we ought to really focus on the areas
Oh,
that.
do we want to say, Randy, that we are okay with moving? You've got is it your district, Randy, that's got 4 and 3 in it, and so you would lose people?
Yeah.
He
that's
loses
fine.
3. He loses 3 and
That's
it gives it to you.
No, but we could say, do I want to say as a,
4.
losing that part of 3 is okay?
No, that's what we proposed. I proposed.
Yeah,
it.
No, I understand
so
that, but do I want to repeat it in this thing, saying
Yeah.
that per our earlier testimony, that makes sense to us, but for these reasons, do we want to say that, well, maps
1 through 3.
1 and 2 were the same, map 3 was not the same.
A little different.
It seemed a little bit different in 3G04. It seemed like it went down a little bit further, but I really can't tell. So do we want to say that we, besides the, what's yours, Randy, 03?
Yep.
So besides saying we're okay with your moving the Ward 3 part of 03 into Ward 3, who gets that? Who gets those people?
You do. It's your
do.
district, 04. It goes to 04.
No,
But-
I think Randy has people in 03.
They go to 3, Ward 3.
Yeah,
They go to
Jerry.
Ward. They don't go to
I lose. 03 would lose the portion that's in Ward 3
right.
and gain a little bit from you, what's in now 04.
Right.
So
But
I
so
know
we're
the-
saying, so what I'm saying is we're okay with the loss. And are we saying that map 1 and 2 is preferred, since we don't know what Ward 3, what map 3 exactly is? Do we want to say the commission asks that maps 1 or 2 be that which they?
Yeah. I think
I
that's
think map 3 was a mistake. The numbers on one of those single member
Yeah.
districts were too high.
Yeah.
And do we want to mention that Jerry's work where he's got the 536 extra people to create a new SMD?
this is going to Ward 4.
Oh, this is just Ward 4. That's right.
Just Ward
yeah,
4.
right. Just Ward 4. Okay.
They're the only
Right,
ones
so
that
I'm gonna say,
It's too much
I'll
going
just
on.
say-
Okay.
in conclusion, I write my conclusions first, then I work backwards. In conclusion,
Evidence-based.
we ask that maps 1 or 2 be implemented as it relates to our, because we're not opining about
Right. on the other
anything
side.
other than our, so we're just saying as it relates to 3,4G, maps 1 and 2 are acceptable.
Right.
Right.
I mean, I think what Abe said was important, which is sometimes when you are that close, then you get to talk to the 2 commissioners get to talk and they get to help, which is not a bad thing, right? By having it so close together.
Yeah. Personally, I don't like talking to any of the commissioners that are but my property.
All right, let's
Okay,
move on.
So mean,
Are we finished?
Michael.
Sorry.
Um,
this
sorry.
is deteriorating rapidly. Okay.
So this-
How about adjourning?
Yes.
So the testimony, so Randy,
Yeah.
so the 9 o'clock where we got it off this agenda, are we putting it on March 14th then? The
Yes.
testimony, okay, I just want to make sure it's not going to go in, it's
Yep.
not going to go to a special meeting.
And
Okay,
so,
You're
sorry, we also agreed that March is, do we agree on March 9th or 10th for
10th, 10th
10th.
10th? And so
at
someone will
7
send
PM,
around
right?
an
7
invite.
PM. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I have to copy the Q&A, sorry.
Okay.
7
Oh, no.
PM,
Oh,
special.
here it is. Okay, good.
Okay. Everybody else could leave. It's fine.
Yeah, everyone could go. You could stop the recording.
We are adjourned.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
Bye.
let me just try to do this.
Hey, Randy, you started,
You could stop the recording, Randy.